Did you know that as of 2024, India's total debt stands at a staggering 181.68 lakh crore and an annual interest payment of around 10 lakh crore? This means that the average Indian citizen carries a debt burden of approximately 1.34 lakh. But what does this all mean for you, the taxpayer, and for India as a whole? Today, we'll break down the figures, the strategies, and the real-world impact behind these numbers. By the end of this video, you might even find yourself rethinking how India's debt directly affects your wallet. Trust me, this is something we all need to understand, so stay tuned. To start with, what is national debt? In simple terms, it's the total amount the government owes to lenders, both domestic and international. As of 2024, India's debt to GDP ratio is about 83.6%. A higher ratio like this shows that India has taken on a lot of debt compared to the size of its economy. It's a measure of both how much we borrow and how likely we are to repay it. To understand what's debt to GDP ratio, let us imagine your total annual income is 1 lakh and you have loans worth 85,700 rupees. That means for every rupee you earn, you owe nearly 86 paisa. In India's case, our debt to GDP ratio is now at 85.7%. This means that for every 100 rupees the country makes, we owe nearly 86 rupee. Let's compare India with other countries. Japan, USA, China. Japan has a debt to GDP ratio of about 250%. The US is at around 120%, and China's is approximately 80%. India's ratio stands at 83.6%. While our debt compared to these countries is not too bad, we need to be careful and watchful to keep it from getting worse. India's public debt can be categorized into two main types: internal debt and external debt. Internal debt is borrowed from domestic sources such as banks, financial institutions, and citizens, while external debt is sourced from foreign lenders, including international organizations and foreign governments. As of March 2024, approximately 170 lakh crore of India's total debt is internal, constituting about 97% of the total debt, while external debt stands at 5.74 lakh crore, accounting for around 3%. Now, why is this distinction important? Well, internal debt is often seen as less risky because it's denominated in local currency, which means the government can manage it more easily without worrying about exchange rates. On the other hand, external debt can expose the country to currency risk, especially if the local currency depreciates. But why is India borrowing so much in the first place? Let's take a historical perspective for a moment. India's journey with debt began shortly after independence in 1947. The early years saw the government taking on debt primarily to fund essential services and infrastructure. In the initial decades, the debt was manageable, focusing on developing agriculture, education, and basic infrastructure. However, the economic landscape began to shift dramatically during the 1990s. This period was marked by liberalization reforms, which opened the economy to global markets. While these reforms stimulated growth, they also increased borrowing to fund various initiatives, leading to a steady rise in debt levels. Fast forward to 2024, and we find ourselves in a much more complex scenario. The total debt has reached 183.67 lakh crore, marking an increase from 168.72 lakh crore in 2023. This increase is not just a number, it has real implications for our economy and public services. With such a significant debt load, how does it affect social spending? Higher debt levels can lead to reduced allocations for essential services. Currently, the government allocates about 7.8% of GDP for social services, which includes education, healthcare, and welfare programs. Investing in social services is vital for human capital development. However, with a significant portion of the budget tied up in debt servicing, estimated at around 11 lakh crore annually, there's less available for growth-oriented expenditures. Debt management in India is handled by the Ministry of Finance, focusing on sustainable borrowing strategies. A key aspect of this management is the Public Debt Management Act, which aims to create a transparent and efficient framework for managing government liabilities. The impact of these constraints is evident when we consider the distinction between productive and non-productive expenses. Productive expenses are investments that contribute to economic growth and generate future returns. These include spending on infrastructure, education, and research, which can enhance productivity and create jobs. For example, investments in renewable energy not only foster sustainability but also drive innovation in the job market. On the other hand, non-productive expenses do not yield future benefits and can burden the economy. These might include excessive administrative costs, or subsidies that do not support sustainable development. While they may address immediate needs, they often divert resources away from essential growth-oriented investments. Now, you might be wondering, if India keeps borrowing so much, how do we even pay it back? Great question. Just like how you repay a loan with your salary, the government repays its debt using the money it earns through taxes like GST, income tax, and customs duties. But here's the catch. If the government's earnings aren't enough to cover both its regular expenses and loan repayments, it ends up borrowing more just to repay old loans. And this is where things get tricky. India has to borrow more money to pay off old loans, a situation known as the debt trap. The more we borrow, the harder it becomes to repay, and it can spiral out of control if not managed carefully. Here's a quick question for you. How much of your taxes do you think goes towards just paying off the interest on India's debt? Is it 10%, 25%, 40%, or 50%? Comment below with your answer. Well, if you guessed 40%, you're right. That's right. 40% of our taxes go straight towards paying off the interest on the loans we've taken. Imagine what we could do with that money if we weren't in so much debt. Now, this is where things get serious. What happens if India's debt keeps growing and we don't manage it properly? First, the government might have to raise taxes to get more money, meaning more money out of your pocket. Second, higher debt can lead to inflation. Prices of everyday things like food, petrol, and electricity could rise faster than your salary. And lastly, if the government has to spend most of its money on repaying debt, there's less money for development, education, and healthcare. This could slow down the country's growth, making it harder for people like you and me to find good jobs or start businesses. Now, let's talk about state-level borrowing. State debt also plays a significant role in India's overall debt. As of 2024, state governments account for nearly 30% of the total debt. Some states, like Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, have seen substantial increases in their borrowing, driven by the need to fund infrastructure projects and social welfare initiatives. This raises a critical question. Can states manage their debt sustainably? Many states are facing challenges in meeting their repayment obligations, leading to concerns about potential defaults. The Finance Commission has been working to address these issues, aiming to enhance fiscal discipline among states. Let's drill down further into the data by examining state-level borrowing. Each Indian state faces its unique financial challenges and opportunities, leading to varying levels of debt. For instance, Maharashtra borrowed 7.8 lakh crore, Uttar Pradesh at 6.2 lakh crore, Karnataka at 4.6 lakh crore, Tamil Nadu at 4.8 lakh crore, Kerala at 3.2 lakh crore, Gujarat at 3.4 lakh crore. These figures illustrate a stark contrast in how states are managing their finances. For example, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, with its massive population, holds the highest debt, reflecting the challenges of governance in such a populous state. This disparity raises questions about equity and development across states. How can states with lower debt levels support those struggling? Should wealthier states assist poorer ones to create a more balanced economy? Now, let's turn to external debt, which comprises a smaller portion of total debt. India's external borrowing is primarily through sovereign loans and multilateral institutions like the World Bank and Asian Development Bank. As of 2024, the external debt is around 5.48 lakh crore, representing approximately 18.7% of GDP. Maintaining a low external debt to GDP ratio is beneficial. It reduces vulnerability to exchange rate fluctuations and enhances financial stability. However, with global economic uncertainties, such as rising interest rates and geopolitical tensions, India must remain cautious. Looking ahead, India's GDP growth is projected between 6.5% to 7% for the fiscal year 2024 to 2025. This growth is essential for managing debt sustainability. A growing economy means more revenue from taxes, which can be used to service debt without crippling other sectors. But growth alone isn't sufficient. The government must focus on structural reforms to boost productivity and ensure sustainable economic expansion. Initiatives in agriculture, manufacturing, and technology are critical in this regard. One of the critical aspects of managing debt is fiscal discipline. The government aims to bring down the fiscal deficit to 4.5% by 2026. Which would require stringent measures to control expenditure and enhance revenue generation. A fiscal deficit occurs when a government's expenditures exceed its revenues, excluding borrowings. It indicates that the government is spending more than it earns and needs to borrow to cover the gap. Achieving fiscal discipline is not merely about cutting expenditures, it's about making smart investments that yield returns. This includes enhancing tax collections, reducing leakages and subsidies, and promoting efficient public spending. Now, let's dive deeper into the sectoral allocation. In 2024, the Indian government allocated debt across various sectors, totaling 48.21 lakh crore in expenditures. Here's a breakdown. Defense received with 6.2 lakh crore, housing funded with 10 lakh crore, education received 1.48 lakh crore, healthcare was funded with 1 lakh crore, while infrastructure topped the list with 11.1 lakh crore. Social welfare initiatives saw an allocation of 3 lakh crore, agriculture and allied sector at 1.2 lakh crore, railways received 2.5 lakh crore and rest 11.3 lakh crore. In 2024, 1.48 lakh crore has been allocated to education, while 90,958 crore is dedicated to healthcare. These numbers signify a focus on human capital development, which is essential for sustainable growth. As we analyze the rising debt, it's imperative to discuss prudent fiscal policies and debt management. A responsible approach to managing debt can lead to targeted investments that can stimulate growth without jeopardizing fiscal health. Here are a few key methods. Targeted investments. Focus on sectors that yield high returns, such as infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Efficient tax collection. Strengthening the tax base can enhance revenue and reduce dependency on borrowing. Expenditure management. Monitoring and managing expenditures effectively to ensure funds are allocated to the most impactful areas. Several countries have successfully implemented similar strategies, leading to healthier economies and reduced debt burdens. International relations play a critical role in shaping India's economic landscape. As we delve deeper into this topic, we'll examine how India's relations with other countries impact our debt situation. In 2024, countries like the United States, Japan, and China are crucial partners in trade and investment. Their influence can either exacerbate or alleviate our debt challenges. Moreover, international lending institutions such as the IMF and World Bank offer both opportunities and challenges. While their support can provide necessary funds, it often comes with conditions that could limit domestic fiscal policy options. Debt has a profound social impact. As the government prioritizes debt servicing, critical areas like education and healthcare may face budget cuts. This could lead to a decline in the quality of public services. With India's literacy rate at approximately 77%, investing in education is essential for the country's growth and development. The government's allocation to education has remained at around 3% of the total budget, which is below the global average of 6.7%. If debt servicing continues to take precedence, we risk jeopardizing the future of millions of children. Furthermore, healthcare spending is a crucial issue. With the ongoing challenge of non-communicable diseases and a burgeoning population, maintaining adequate healthcare services is imperative. Now, how does India plan to repay its growing debt? The government's strategy hinges on several key elements, including economic growth, efficient tax collection, and optimizing public spending. India has aimed for an average growth rate of 6 to 7% in the coming years, which is crucial for increasing revenue. Moreover, the government plans to improve tax compliance and broaden the tax base to increase overall revenue. Next, let's explore how political promises during election seasons influence debt management in India. The political dynamics surrounding debt management are equally significant. Debt becomes a contentious topic during election seasons, with parties promising debt relief and increased spending on social programs. However, such promises can often lead to unrealistic fiscal policies that may exacerbate the debt crisis. In recent years, the Election Commission of India has emphasized the importance of fiscal responsibility among candidates. Promises need to be backed by clear financial plans to ensure that voters are not misled. How do citizens perceive India's rising debt? A recent survey indicated that about 68% of respondents are worried that rising debt will lead to higher taxes in the future. This sentiment highlights the need for the government to communicate effectively about its debt management strategies and how they will benefit the populace. As we wrap up our analysis, it's essential to address how this debt affects you, the citizen. The decisions made at the governmental level have real consequences for daily life. Rising debt levels can lead to higher taxes, reduced public services, and increased inflation. In conclusion, India's debt situation in 2024 presents both challenges and opportunities. While the current numbers might seem daunting, proactive measures and strategic planning can help navigate this complex landscape. So what do you think? Is India's debt something we can handle, or are we heading for a bigger crisis? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video useful. Until next time, take care and stay informed.